So I'm going to sit down because what I want to do with this panel really, and we deliberately actually haven't chatted at all before this panel. Most panels you sort of chat on WhatsApp or something, or jump on a Zoom call and you generally sort of agree what the agenda is. I find that really boring. And because it's sort of like pre-structured and sort of pre-organized. One of the things I really wanted to do with this event, and certainly with this panel, when we talk about technology, is we're all domain experts in this. I mean, I'm from a technology background. Everybody's on here because they're experts in their field. So there's no need for the sort of credibility aspect of what it is that we do. We want to see how we can apply technology to help a career. How does it work? What are the obstacles? How is AI sort of a friend or a foe? Is Web3, crypto bullshit? Is sort of, how do these sort of technologies apply to the industry right now? But before I do that, I'd like each one of you to introduce yourself, please, starting.
Sure. I'm Hanna Kahlert. I work at MIDiA Research. Some of you may know us, some of you may not. We're an insights and consulting firm in digital entertainment and music. So we do stuff like the Women in Music project with TuneCore and Believe. We do like a creator survey every year. We do a lot of consumer surveys, which inform most of our analysis. I think that's the short form version.
Thanks, Hanna.
Hi, I'm Tom Veck. I am a recording artist and I'm a designer and co-founder of a couple of music platforms that are using, one of which is using Web3 technologies. I'd like to speak a bit about that, hopefully, which is called Super Collector. So I'll leave it there.
Hi, yes, I'm David. So I've been in music tech for, 18 years. Started off by founding a company called Slicethepie back in 2007, which is weirdly parallel to what we're going to be talking about today, which is about democratizing the music industry. Slicethepie was about funding unsigned artists to record an album, raising £15,000, and all funded by music fans. And in exchange for their funding, they got a token that enabled them to share in the financial success of the artist, and they could trade that token. Rolling forward, that rolled forward into a company called SoundOut, which became the world leader in music testing for record labels in the US market and all US radio groups. That continued for about 10 years and then evolved into still SoundOut, but focusing on the interface between brands and music and helping brands find the right music for syncs, for advertising and sonic branding as well. And that business now is all AI powered.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I work under the name Sound of Fracture as an electronic music artist. I also work at a couple of universities doing education stuff. And I guess I have been making music for a long time. I've lived off music my whole life. And I'm currently on this kind of journey of trying to work out what creative careers are of the future. I do a lot of experimentation with different technologies and different ideas, and I'm trying to sort of blend that by writing up as research and sharing the journey and hopefully inspiring some other people to take some risks and try some new things.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's really interesting, because we've got a mixture of sort of business and creative, using technology for the business side of it, as sort of David's been doing for years, and then using the technology to create. And it's that sort of, and sometimes these sort of technology terms are just so widely used and sort of abused that it's sort of difficult to know where to start, So from the research aspect of how technology is being used in the industry, is it too early, in terms of technologies like AI or Web3, is that having any impact at all on the industry right now, or is it just a lot of froth without any real structure?
That is a good question. I think when we do our research and when we look at these sort of trends, we always pay attention to the hype cycle. I'm sure that many of you are and basically the idea is that like near term, everyone gets like, oh my God, this is like the biggest thing ever. What? And then like it crashes and everyone goes, oh, that was actually really like, it didn't do anything. And then it like equalizes into a fairly long-term serious impact. There's also, I think, the Bill Gates quote is you always overestimate the near-term impacts and underestimate the long-term impacts. I think with AI, we are kind of seeing already a balance of it coming out and actually having some serious impacts. But one of the things that I like to say is that AI doesn't cause anything, it doesn't really solve any problems or create any problems that didn't already exist before it came about. It just kind of exacerbates situations we already had. So all the challenges of streaming, all the opportunities of creator tools, these are things that AI really just exacerbates. It doesn't really change necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's always interesting, that sort of hype cycle, because it creates so much fear and of missing out. That whole FOMO thing. It's like, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. Is it too late? I'm too late. It's sort of happening. From a creative perspective, how do you take that sort of technology and go, actually, I can make something with this. I can.
For me, I got bored with the models that we had. So like as an artist, I was doing the out now, pitch to Spotify, release day video, the cycle that was just, getting very repetitive for me. So like for me, I was exploring because it was exciting to kind of have something where I could sell different mediums. So I kind of got into exploring like blockchain stuff because I could take a collaboration I did with a visual artist and my music and sell it as like a single product. And that was my initial like thing, was like NFTs with this empty box that I could put anything in and sell. And
is that sort of where you're with that user-generated content, for want of a better term, the somebody else is collaborating on that stem or whatever, and then that IP is registered jointly? Or I mean, is that sort of?
I have started experimenting with that. Yeah, like I've got an album that I did last year where fans, audiences, friends could contribute like their memories to the project, and they became like images that were the artwork for the songs, and they were like released as like digital art, and people could collect the ones they created, and they crowdfunded the project. When the project made profit, everybody got a share. So I'm playing with that stuff. I think it's early, but I do think I think the main thing is for me is that like it's a gray space where the technology that you don't need money to use in a certain sense, like the infrastructure is free. I think like that's the interesting thing for me about what took me to the blockchain, is that I could arrange a way to sell and work with people in a way where I didn't need to pay a company a percentage. And that was quite liberating for me personally, to be able to like go out and collaborate with people and create stuff with people and not need to pay for the infrastructure. And that was like a very simple thing, and it's open, right? The data's open, the access is open, the connection is open, specifically if that's like the blockchain thing. But that was useful for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's and do you see that as can you make money from that?
It's a big question. I would say that like there's a niche audience, and it's a highly engaged niched audience, and that for me as a small early level electronic music artist was more financially worthwhile than having to compete in the chaos of social media. Like it was like building a following on Bandcamp or something, in the sense that there was a bunch of people who like collecting digital art, who are interested in people that are trying new things, and in that sense it was much easier for me to carve out a niche for myself as like someone doing something different using those tools than it would be in like the box of Instagram or Spotify, where what you can do is quite limited to what services their needs.
So you've got it's a bit like what Nikki was saying earlier about these sort of super fans, really, the really engaged small number of super fans that have a disproportionate impact in terms of potential revenue for an artist as opposed to anything else. I know Tom wants to jump in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. Because I think I was saying to elaborate on Jamie's point, I think the Web3 at the moment is such a broad technology that you can't just apply it and be like, oh, I'm doing a Web3 this. It's just like a technology like the internet, and it has some specific features to it that can be used in kind of interesting ways. And I think what we've already experienced, Jamie and I both, like, last couple of years paying attention to what's going on, you've had all sorts of things like single editions of songs being worth, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, but also completely free music. It's like you can have so owning an NFT doesn't mean anything on its own, which I think is has been a bit of a sort of anticlimax, because I think a lot of us wanted a new format to come along and be like, oh, this means something, you know, like we've got the CD, the vinyl, and then there is this question mark. And to speak to my own work in this area, I work very closely with a developer. I'm a designer, I work with a developer, and it's a really rewarding process because we can work very quickly on building digital platforms and trying things out. And we have a few projects, but it became apparent to me as an artist, as well as someone who likes thinking about these things, about platforms and formats and what might be useful for the fan, is this idea of standing for something as a platform. So put very simply, Super Collector has this format where it prices songs at $10, because, like I said, you can give away music for free on and still be blockchain powered if you want. So we kind of felt like, and this is a much broader thing to talk about, but like digital technology can kind of enable anything, and music, as we all know, the digital audio file can be duplicated, sent around, you know, a million times. This is where this kind of value concept has been lost and arguably taken control of in a different way with our current streaming behaviors that users have. So to try and talk about it simply, I think there needs to be, it's like technology meets a kind of cultural agreement where we're like, if we want music to be valuable, and I personally still believe that the recorded song is extremely valuable to fans of music. You know, it's interesting seeing Nikki's presentation earlier talking about superfans and the things they're buying. Like, nothing in there currently directly refers to the music. And so I feel like it's very like extremely simple of me to say this, but I believe that digital technology can provide fundamental value to the song, you know, to liberate artists to not have to worry about touring being a way of income, merch being a way of income, all these other ways to get money. And I like having that position purely from an ideological standpoint. It's just, I like, you know, trying to be there and work on that. So that's where we're at, I think, with Web3, is that it needs to, within the whole of Web3, you have lots of different ways of doing things. And the crucial thing for me is that fans can be independently validated as a fan. And I think there's so much you can build around all of that. Anybody here wants to talk to me more about this, I can gladly elaborate, but I'll stop there.
I mean, I think a lot of that is also the reason we've seen formats like vinyl coming back up, is there's something to being able to own music, to physically hold it in your hands. That's something that has been lost in the way that streaming has kind of made everything accessible all the time. One of the things that I would argue, even we were discussing earlier, the different platforms, there was the one that opened up to everyone and suddenly none of them made any money, versus the one that's invite only is the one that's actually quite valuable. One of the things that, because it's quite new, these Web3 platforms are able to reintroduce scarcity. And obviously, like, scarcity creates value. So if it's ubiquitous access, you can have whatever you want. Suddenly it becomes valueless. That's why streaming can be problematic, is because it takes the value of music down to almost nothing. The saying is like, it's tap water, right? It's something you don't necessarily value. And when you can reintroduce scarcity by saying, oh, there's only so many artists, there's only so many tokens, there's only so many of this, you allow people to say, oh, well, this is valuable, this is new, this is something I can do that stands out to me. But when we talk about Web3 platforms, that niche fan audience that you mentioned earlier, it's like a niche. They're people who are fans of the technology, not necessarily people who are fans of the artist. You're not going to get like every Taylor Swift fan out there suddenly buying a Taylor Swift NFT because they have no idea what an NFT is. But if you get like a bunch of people who are like really into NFTs, there are going to be a couple of electronic artists who say, wow, okay, like all of my fans seem to be really into this like NFT thing. Maybe that's where I make my money instead of TikTok. So it works for some because it fills this need for scarcity, and it creates a niche, or it finds a niche. It taps into like a different way of giving value to the music and giving fans a way of like ownership of that. But I think it's because of these broader dynamics of like a need for scarcity, a need for like separating out something special for the fans. That's what it fulfills for like a certain group, rather than being like the be all end all solution.
I agree. I mean, I buy into that. David Sorin.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's all around the relationship between the fan and the artist. And what AI, and we haven't talked about AI yet, but what AI is taking away is the ability to make music that people like. And that, whether you agree or not, that is what is going to happen. The only unique thing you have as an artist is the relationship with your fans, and all of the technology, all of the NFTs, blockchain, Web3, etc. They're just an enabler. What they enable you to do is take a one-to-many model, which is a radio model or a record label model where you rely on one person to broadcast, and creates a many-to-many, so a complete matrix between your ability to touch any fan anywhere in the world and create a relationship of trust, a relationship of respect, and a relationship, most importantly, of value. That's all you have, or all you're going to have as an artist. And so I would say that all these technologies, used right in certain circumstances, can help you build that relationship. And with that relationship of trust comes value, and that brings money. And that's what this is all about, creating money to enable you, if you are an artist, to actually have a career rather than have a hobby.
Absolutely, and I think the one thing I would add to that is disintermediation. It's the ability to remove people who are just extracting value from that process, and that extracting value from the relationship between you and your fans, you and your community. What are they actually adding? And I think that Web3 technologies, and I hate the term Web3, but we use it, have the ability to disintermediate and sort of and create value chains between the content that you create, the music that you create, and the fans. And going back to the scarcity aspect of it, absolutely, it's no different. My school friend spent his honeymoon going around record fairs looking for rare vinyl, with his new wife sort of on toe, sort of hours looking through sort of in record fairs, that looking for that scarce bit of vinyl, and NFTs provide the ability to sort of do that at scale, really, and a lot of other things as well. I do want to move on to AI a little bit, but if does anybody else want to sort of expand the conversation, I can get.
Well, I just wanted to quickly say I have like my sort of like smartest thing that with vinyl. The thing about that vinyl scenario you talk about is that you might track down this rare vinyl record, gets bought, and it might be very expensive because it's rare or whatever. Now, none of that money is going back to that artist. So I have actually quite strong opinions on scarcity in Web3, and I don't actually think I don't think it's completely needed. I don't think it's the core attraction of blockchain stuff. I think the core thing is that you have a verified evidence of intention of a fan loving your music. I believe very strongly at the song granularity level, because if you think if you're trying to extract is a horrible word, but if you're trying to establish a sort of financial transaction with a fan, like so it's a t-shirt, whatever it be, you think about how valuable a piece of data it is for you for it to be a song, because you can then, with wallet, I'm not sure how clued up everyone is here, but broadly the kind of user account thing with Web3 is having a wallet that works on multiple theoretically all Web3 experiences. You have your wallet, you connect to it, so you sort of own this data. You can things that you collect all are sort of verified by your wallet. If you then were given, for an example, if an artist wanted to offer people who have shown this intention of being a super fan, for example, buying a song, and you want to give them early access to tickets, so you say you validate yourself with your wallet, and then what happens is you then have lists of people who have bought tickets to shows, but you also have this data of what songs they have assigned value to. And for me, I just sort of love that very simple example, because it's so music focused, and it gives artists great data, and fans end up with things that they really, really truly care about. My experience as an artist, when you end up meeting real fans at real gigs, they'll come up to you and they'll talk about a song. It will be songs that you've written that they're talking about, you know, and they'll be like, and therefore I love that album, and therefore I love that era, and I might have that T-shirt from that album campaign. But it kind of, I think the crucial thing is really trying to reconnect people with your music. And so, because that's what I want for fellow artists, is for this focus to be, is for when people are in the studio, they think what I'm making is the most valuable thing that I make.
I love that, because it pretty much defines what we're building at AmplifyWorld. So thank you very much for that. Sort of moving on, we haven't talked about AI. So AI is, gosh, how long have we got? A little quick one I'll do first. Friend or foe, AI?
Well, it's a tool, right? Like, is a fork a friend or a foe? I don't know. It depends if you're going to eat
how
food
it's
or stab
used.
someone with it, right? Like, it's just a thing.
I'm just going to grab a beer.
You will need one for this conversation. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of the conversation around it. It reminds me a lot about how we talked about auto tuning in the early 2000s. Like, oh, no one's ever gonna have to know how to sing again. Like, art is dead. You're like, okay, well, we now have real singers who still sing well, so I think that that's not so much a problem. I was at a museum recently, and they had like an automaton that could play a trumpet back in like the 1800s, and they were like, no one's ever gonna need to play in a brass orchestra again because we have automatons. And obviously we have people who still play in orchestras. But I do think that AI is a great excuse, and this goes beyond music as well, for people who want, or not an excuse, AI is a solution if your problem is not paying for artists. So if you're an advertiser and you don't want to pay for music to go in the back of your ads, AI is great, because we don't have the copyright stuff set out. You don't have to pay for it. Like, I mean, the cost will go up because AI is very expensive. Generative AI is very expensive to run. The servers are very expensive. The energy costs are very expensive. So at the moment, it's all loss leading. That is going to change in the next 5 years, and it's going to become incredibly expensive. And then anyone who's relying on it is going to be fucked. But we'll get there when we get there. But at the moment, right, if you don't want to pay for music, or if you don't want to pay your copywriters, or if you don't want to pay for
That's the whole music industry.
that's a lot of industries. But yeah, so that's where it becomes threatening, right? It's not AI technology itself, it's who decides to use it, how and why, and how many protections do we have in place to compensate the people who made it even possible to do what it does. Yeah.
Thanks for that. But as a result, I said this was going to be organic. That's a stupid question I asked, so I apologize for that. It's like ridiculous. I'm going to change it a little bit to say, how would you see, Tom, in your sort of vision and some of the designs that you're sort of doing, where does AI fit into that? And talking about, and how does it fit into like the Web3 narrative? Does it?
Yeah. Feel like I'm not actively involved in developing any AI stuff, so I say this purely as a kind of armchair person with an opinion as an artist. If it's like doing something that I would otherwise find fun, then that's kind of, I don't see the use for it there. If it's doing something that I would find tedious, then I'm all for that kind of thing. So I think there is an argument that where the two meet, it's like you use, Web3 stuff can be used for authenticity, verifying something as being done by an artist, as opposed to like an AI that might have been trained on it or something, blah, blah. But that's probably where I tap out, really.
Thanks. David, your business is AI.
Yeah, we rely on AI. I think a lot about AI. I've been following it very closely for the last 2-3 years. I think it will fundamentally change just about everything we know about everything. 6 months ago, I stopped using lawyers. I get AI to do the whole lot. The same applies to software developers. Increasingly, our software development team, 30-40% of what they do now, compared to 6 months ago, is AI driven. I think musicians are in real trouble. I really do. I think if you look at historically what has happened through the world and progress, factories came along and put a load of people out of work. 95% of people in the UK 150 years ago used to be involved in agriculture. It's now 2%. The one thing that humans have had as unique is creativity. A computer will never be able to be creative. That is gone. Whatever you might think, it is gone. I mean, our business has tested over 500,000 songs with consumers over the last 10 years. We're now testing AI songs for various things, and a lot of those songs are being rated by consumers in the top 10% of songs that we've ever tested in terms of appeal. Forget about the personal connection. So there is going to be not a reckoning, but I think to your point, brands, and we work with brands, biggest brands in the world, they are going to embrace AI. As soon as they get over the hump of legality, they will embrace AI. So sync deals, movie scores, advertising, any music used in branding, won't all happen overnight, but over the next 5 years, that will be replaced largely by AI because it's cheaper. And as simple as that, it's cheaper. And it's going to be as good from a consumer perspective. So I'm not an optimist.
I love panels like this.
I'm
You're
not-
all fucked.
No, which is why I come back to the point that what artists do have, is that personal relationship. You are a brand. Every artist in the world is a brand themselves. Most of them are not very successful brands. Some are hugely successful. That is what you've got to trade on. And you have to build that connection, whether it's buying new technologies, reaching out, but you have to create that connection, because without that emotional connection, and incidentally, we've done research this summer to show that only about 10% of music consumers actually care about the artist. It's all about the song. So you've got to get those super fans. And I know super fans aren't 10%, they're probably only 1%, but that is where the money is. I'll stop. Sorry.
I think
Let me go to Jamie. I will come back. Okay. Come on,
I'm
give
not
us some
sure I
hope.
agree with that. I think it will definitely make a massive impact. I think like production library music and a lot of things will get pretty decimated. But like a lot of the sync agencies I work for still want a story behind the artist that they're putting behind. If it's like L'Oreal, they prefer to work with like a young female artist who like is associated with their values. And I think there's still I also, I am pretty much 100% confident that all Suno and those companies will do licensing deals in the next sort of 4 to 5 years with the major labels. How that trickles down, we don't know yet, but it's not going to carry on like it is. There's like an established framework for IP and music that is being tried and tested over and over again. Like even, Google doing, they have to pay because of the legal frameworks we have. Maybe there's a chance that someone like Donald Trump might mess with that if they like form an alliance with like large tech companies and decide that like innovation moving forward is more important. But I can't really see that happening. So I think that it will change things, but I still think like artist stories, artist identities, maybe there'll be a big separation between like, Spotify becoming a lean back listening platform that is dominated by like nameless music, but I think other things will emerge. I don't think like 13-year-olds are interested in background music, right? They're interested in people, they're interested in stories, they're interested in like their cultural framework that is interesting to them. And I don't think that unless there's like AI, like generated, and
It's like
memes and
scenes
things.
are still a thing. Scenes will be
Are still a
thing.
thing. Music comes from a place. There is already like automated AI music personalities. They, like things happen like that. But yeah, I don't think it's the end of the world. Like I built my own platform using AI tools. I don't know how to code. I had to learn some basics, but I could never have done that before. I've just done a collaboration where people can remix my song on like an AI platform, but it has like a back end of, like that works with blockchain and works with distributors to like attribute splits and the different people that contribute stems to the platform. And, like there are a few platforms that are sort of building legal frameworks that look like would be the thing that will be more normal in the future in the terms of where they're pulling their data from and how they attribute that. So I have a slightly more positive outlook.
Yeah, thanks.
But I think it will change, right? Like there is a lot of types of music that will be replaced. You're right. Especially like library music, low value, sort of low cost, like Netflix content, like the Kardashians and things like that, that will already using production library music, but that is work for someone, but it's much cheaper than a Rihanna song. But it might be called like a slightly different name variation, and it might also have like songs that sound like Rihanna the album on Universal Music Production, right? We have that already, but that is work for people.
Yeah.
So that will change that. But I don't think every music artist is going to be like an AI bot, and but I think like navigating social media is going to get a lot harder. I think like I do a lot of work on the blockchain where AI agents are moving like daily at an incredible speed that you wouldn't believe, like trading with each other, creating economies between each other. That music was very strangely.
It's like the AI agent has taken over.
But they are doing things that like I wouldn't have. Like there are autonomous AI agents that are actually like building economies freely on their own. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to make money from music in the future. But yes, there are some very interesting things happening around it.
Thank you. I did promise you could come back in.
Sorry.
Yes, no, that's okay. There's so many things, so many points.
That's why I got the beer.
Honestly, I think the idea of AI generated music completely replacing artists, I kind of agree with your optimism there. Like even if you look at the way Suno and Udio are as like user interfaces, they've adjusted from when they came out. They were very much like put in prompt, get song, and now they're a lot more like music creation tools, so to say. Like they actually have like, oh, adjust this, adjust that. Like I think it's definitely, we're more likely to see an artist using the tool to make cheap AI music for the TV show or for the ad than some executive going in and saying, make TV ad music for this, and then just shoving that song on an ad because it's probably not going to play as well. When you said forget about what it means to people or something like that, I think that's, we actually have a data point around this. So we asked people like, something along the lines of like, how much does the music you listen to reflect who you are? And it was 81% like agreed. So either strongly agree or agree. So if 81% of people who listen to music say that the music they listen to reflects who they are, that's more than the clothes they wear, the TV shows they watch, the people they hang out with. Like music is an identity thing. That's why people like music. You can sit there and say, oh, yeah, I think this is a good song, but like your favorite music, like the music is something that resonates with you as a person. And that's what drives the fandom. And there's all sorts of arguments that can be had around like who is a super fan? Is it someone who spends a lot of money? Is it someone who goes to a lot of shows? Is it someone who mints your NFTs? It obviously depends. I think it would say it depends a lot on the artist, on the fan community, on the individual, on the genre. But you cannot have AI totally replace music because music is a personal identity thing and not a utility. So to the extent that music is a utility, when it's like some sync stuff, some advertising stuff, then yes, it can be used to replace it to an extent. But music as it is valuable is much more than that. And in that sense, it cannot be replaced. So again, optimism for the artists in the crowd.
Yeah, it's kind of like
I'm in between both of you, both sort of points. But one thing that I'm doing quite a lot of work on is sort of AI agents right now, and the music discovery via AI agents, and when you train your own AI agent to go and find music for you, it'll know who you really are based on everything that you're doing online and your whole data sort of input. So you could say to your friend, yeah, I'm a real super fan of that artist, but actually your AI agent will know that you've never listened to them, and it's sort of so it'll go and find music that they think that it thinks that you want to listen to. And I think it won't care who created it, because it'll be trying to find something that serves your requirement for that particular time of the day, or mood that you're in, which will also be defined by your search history as to what you're looking for at that point, and sort of a whole range of other sort of data points. And I think that's so AI, that's not a creative process, but it's a discovery process for music that'll come through these sort of agents. Now that could be really bleak, or it could be really
Isn't that
exciting.
what Spotify already does with its
No, because I think
weird,
don't you have to give them 30% of your royalties to sort of be found? Didn't Drake discover that? I think it's that's not an AI agent, that's a business model. I'm not dissing Spotify here at all, but I'm saying that's a business model. AI agents are agnostic of platform. They don't give a shit if it's on Spotify, Apple, or anything else. If it's digital and it's discovered, it'll find it and play it. And and that changes everything. So, capturing value within a platform, extracting that value, owning the data, selling that data to generate revenues from a centralized music platform is for the birds, going forward. That is not a model that's going to be sustainable. So you're going to have open metadata, you're going to have searchable tracks, you're going to have everything digital, and AI agents be able to find it, discover it, play it. I haven't got the sort of ability to play from a particular platform. Your AI agent will build the code, and you'll have that replica of that platform built, in no time at all. And you'll have your version of Spotify on your own instance, on your own sort of computer. So everything changes massively, and that's 100% is, we can see that happening right now, and and I think that's actually where blockchain comes in as well. I think that's because verification and AI agents and payments and micropayments based on, sort of tokenization. There's a whole sort of range of things. Anyway, I'm banging on a bit, so I apologize for that. It's not my panel. Does anybody else want to add anything? And then what I want to do is open it up if anybody's got any questions for us. Anybody send their AI agent up to the sort of stage and ask a question?
So it sounds like lyrics. And meaning, well, so our business is all about emotion. So what we actually do when we're matching music to brands is we're measuring any piece of music against over 400 different emotional states. And then we're getting the brand to define their own brand positioning, their own brand personality, and then we're matching perfectly the music to the brand so that it reinforces that brand emotion. And we have had discussions with not actual
David, sorry, can you use the mic because it's sort of plugged into?
We have had interaction about companies that make AI music, because what we can do is you can give a prompt, you can get the AI to make a song with music. We can pass it through our AI systems. We can measure the 400 emotional states, and we can feed it back into the AI. And we can say to the AI, actually, we need to dial up empathy, or we need to dial up togetherness, or we need to dial up humanness, or trust, or innovation, or whatever it might be. You're just telling the AI to remake the song, or to tweak the song to turn up those particular emotions. And you can do that all in a couple of minutes. And then you end up with a song that emotionally impacts the consumer precisely as you want it to do. Because, of course, music is consumed subconsciously. You can't put a song on and decide it's going to make you happy or sad, or whatever the emotion might be. It just happens. So to actually be able to trigger that in the human brain is a pure subconscious reaction, and therefore there is a recipe that you can create with AI to enable it to do that. So I suppose, to answer your question, yes, you can actually use AI to make music to deliver. Well, at the moment, I don't ever use Sleevenote, Udio, and the others. A voice is created. I mean, yeah. On the other hand, you have companies like Voicify, now Jammable, that will flip out any vocal to any other vocal. And I know them pretty well, but AI can do just about anything, but it can't actually create a real lasting connection. And don't get me wrong, I'm not forecasting the death of the music industry. I'm really concerned that the people part of music, the creators themselves, which is the only unique thing that will be left, need to get out there and need to make that the important part of the relationship.
To that point, songwriting is one of the more at-risk professions because obviously the artist, the singer or the front of a band can make that connection with their audience because they're on social media, they're on the stage, whatever. But the songwriters are traditionally kind of on the back foot anyway. Like with streaming, they're splitting royalties between like maybe 6 credits on a track. And if an artist goes, well, instead of if the front line person is like, oh, well, instead of splitting between 6 songwriter credits, I maybe use AI and have like 1 come in, like that's quite damaging to the songwriting profession.
I mean, it's such a broad thing we're getting into here, but I think there's like a level. I mean, I'm talking purely as like a music fan here because I feel like your data set is referring to brands who want an emotion to be felt associated with a product, blah, blah, blah. And so we're not talking about direct music fans here, I don't think as much. Maybe we get into that. But I mean, I think a lot of us here know that, when you hear a song that you think sounds great, you go through that first layer of finding a little bit more about that artist. And that can help bolster how you feel about that song. So I think there is a layer of context is very important. I think the Spotifys of the world have stripped back context a lot. So it's just like, it's just a song in a playlist, you'll go past it. One of my other projects is very much based on album art. I feel like album art has been a very important context. It's another thing that can be made by AI, but it's this thing that sort of like, again, sort of bolsters what this music is about. And I think there's this kind of psychological question to ask ourselves as human beings, that if you sort of hear a song with amazing lyrics and is amazingly sung, discover that it's made by AI, you might be like, okay, well, am I going to take that to heart the same way as knowing that a real person sung it? I think a lot of the reason that I wanted to become a musician is because I was kind of in awe of the fact that another human being had made something. I think that is a fundamental thing about art. Like, art can be generated by a machine. Is that aspirational for me to associate, like you say, sort of align myself with? If someone said, what is your favorite art? My brain is probably going to, make a decision between art that I know was made by a fellow human being. So I think there's an element of that there. It'd be really interesting to see what people, think about that. And I'm not sure if people even know at this point. Like, AI could generate you your absolute favorite song you've ever heard ever. That is possible. There is this argument that like it's kind of an interesting loop if the technology is there that you've asked for it. But I think this is the other thing is that, AI, like you mentioned, software developers and things, they know what prompts to use to get the right things back. AI is a tool currently. It doesn't sit there and do nothing. You've got all these layers of getting close to what you want. Do people even know what they want? And mostly the purpose of art is to surprise people. So, you can have a big like surprise me button and then you're just in the world of like pure serendipity. So I think that like anything, like going back to, there's a kind of like futuristic view that like, we're going to sort of like futurism is kind of sexy. It's just all disruption and everything's just going to be ruined. And then you look back on other forms of culture and art and everything. And, great musicianship has stuck around, great paintings are still relevant, all this kind of stuff. And I think it's okay at some point to be like, music at a certain level is going to be, musicianship and songwriting at a certain level is always going to be fine if it's like a human is emotionally doing it. I think there will always be.
The bit, and it's really some really good points. The bit that really fascinates me is that human beings are creative. And if you remove the barrier to that creativity, which could be learning an instrument, and that learning an instrument may not be possible because of your social environment. You just may not be able to afford the instrument to be able to do it. if you can remove that and actually just connect your creative process, you know, through, let's call it an AI engine, to say, you know, write this, I've got this great idea, and now I don't even need to use a keyboard. I can just talk about this great idea, and I want to create this sort of environment, you know.
But it's almost a bit of a myth. I think artists don't go into that and be like, I'm going to do something amazing today. I'm happy if I could press a button that would be like, create amazing art. The artists don't do that. They explore
destroyed my whole.
And that's why the people who might use AI art tools to do that are not, you won't classify them as artists.
Anyway.
You know, in my opinion.
We got any more questions? I know we're now eating into your eating space. So any last questions? Obviously, we're going to be mingling around, so if anybody wants to chat to us individually. Great. Well, thanks to the panel. Thank you very much. And yeah, thanks for your attention.